After our first island endeavour, the wild ride through the north back in 23, we returned to Spain. This time, the road took us to the only desert in Europe, the Tabernas. From there, we wandered through the famous cave houses of Gordix and deep into the ancient caves of Nerka, a 5 million year old system once home to humans nearly 25,000 years ago. We stood before the Alhambra, the breathtaking 13th century Moorish palace overlooking the city of Granada. We walked the Camino del Rey, once one of the most dangerous paths in the world, now restored but still a thrill, suspended 100 meters above the gorge of El Chorro. There were wasps in helmets, almost fueling up with diesel in the desert, and a ride to the highest point of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Another chapter of the journey, and every mile, a story to remember. Previously, on the wild Atlantic Way, we headed north. From the moment the ferry ramp dropped, the doors opened up to the Antrim coast, fast, flowing and smooth. We crossed the Carrick-a-Reed rope bridge, explored the ruins of Dunluce Castle, clinging to the edge of the cliffs, and walked the Giant's Causeway, thousands of hexagonal stones stepping into the sea. We pushed further north to Malin Head, Ireland's most northerly point, and finally to Slieve League, where the cliffs rise straight from the Atlantic. The north of Ireland delivered. In this episode, we head south to continue the journey. After the first journey, we felt the need to turn the compass. The road north to Cairnryan had served its purpose, but the thought of retracing it felt all too familiar, so we flipped the route and set our sights south. Then it would be time to pack up and get gone, and feel that familiar tremor of anticipation that comes just before a journey begins. Our heading would be Holyhead in North Wales. From there, we will catch the ferry across to Dublin and pick up the wild Atlantic Way from its southern reaches, heading northward. This way, the coast would always be on our near side. We arrived at Dublin Port, took the tunnel and joined the M50, the ring road around the city. Then we headed south, leaving Dublin behind, and the Wicklow Mountains came into view. The adventure began with a view straight off a postcard. The Wicklow Mountains and Loch Tay laid out before us. It felt like the perfect start to the trip, or so we thought.
Okay, currently on the road between Dublin and the mountains of Wicklow.
Leaving the mountains, we were caught in heavy rain. My phone, mounted on the bike with the quad lock and missing its protective poncho, which I'd forgotten to fit, didn't stand a chance. Water got in and it died on the spot. A disaster, as this was the primary source for our navigation systems. The first problem of the trip behind us, we pushed through the weather to our first night's accommodation. These things happen on bike trips, which is why you always double up. Chris had his phone on the quad lock too, and we were able to switch it over to my bike. No real issue for navigation, just an early reminder not to get complacent.
Okay, this is our first night's accommodation. Nice little bungalow tucked away countryside. in a small village called, I think it's called Cocaine of all places. Bikes were all secure, everything was cool. It's quite a good view actually. I pan round and it's actually called Day View, this place. I'll show you why. You can actually see the sea there. Yeah, it's quite spectacular.
Night 1 in Croquet gave us a solid rest after the journey's start and a long day on the road. In the morning, we hoped for better weather as we set our sights on Ireland's most southerly point, Mizen Head, which is famous for its historic signal station, once vital for warning ships of treacherous rocks below, and for the dramatic 50-metre footbridge that links the mainland to the station itself. We reached our destination under mixed skies, but the rain eventually passed and the sun broke through for our visit. Mizen Head shone in all its glory as we followed the pathways and took in the views. Personally, I found it far more impressive than its northern counterpart Malin Head. There were better viewpoints, a more dramatic setting, a much more comprehensive visitor centre. In fact, there wasn't one at all at Malin Head. Much more parking and plenty of room to explore. After soaking up the sights of Mizen Head, there was no better way to reflect than with a pint at the most southerly pub in Ireland. We would have all loved to have stayed and had more pints. However, our companionship pulled us back to the road to our destination for our second night's accommodation. Our rendezvous with the host was at Castle Donovan. One thing quickly became clear about rural Southern Ireland. Everyone seems to know everyone. Two young lads who knew the land and its back roads like the lines on their hands recognised our host immediately, even though they lived miles away.
Okay, day 2. Well, the Atlantic Wave trip. Place we're staying today, Dunman Way. This is our digs. Pretty good. It's all open plan. Great, but the only problem is pretty noisy. When people are talking downstairs and you're trying to get a kit, can't do it. View out of the window. It's got this weird glass floor.
Inevitably, to the gaffer's disappointment, we stayed up drinking and talking until the early hours, and then, finally, it was time for rest. In the first 2 days, we covered a lot of ground, starting in Dublin, riding through the Wicklow Mountains, then headed south and west. We stayed in Croquet outside Cork, then pushed on to Mizen Head before looping back up to Castle Donovan. We decided to skip the Ring of Kerry, knowing it would be clogged with coach traffic, and set our sights on the quieter Ring of Beara instead. Beara's coast road was fast and fun to ride, and we made good time to the Healy Pass. It was built in 1847 and it's famous for its hairpins and its views across the Carhar Mountains on the Beara Peninsula.
Hey, currently on the Healy Pass. It's about 7 mile long between these hills here. It's unfortunately it's a lake down here. Unfortunately it's peeing it down and the mist is spoiling it really. I can't really make it out because of the mist, but yeah.
We battled through heavy rain with no waterproofs, a result of poor preparation and misplaced faith in the good weather we had on our first trip. Eventually, soaked through, we reached our night's resting place.
Okay, these are the digs at Kilcarney. Surrounded by mountains, you can't really see very well. with the bikes.
We had a beer or two to soak up the disappointment of the day, being the weather, followed by some good food, then bed. Leaving Killarney, our aim was to reach the most westerly point of Ireland, found along the Ring of Dingle. Our luck with the weather hadn't improved, and the Atlantic seemed determined to throw more rain at us the closer we got to the coast. Still, with stubborn determination, we made it our mission to reach the viewpoint. Rain didn't let up. I couldn't even roll a fag in it, and we were soaked through. But we still made it. The highlight of our last stay was definitely dampened, but never mind, could be worse. We headed for our digs in Shannon for the last night. The rain finally eased as we reached a great viewpoint, and for a moment, things seemed to be brightening up. Until my GoPro fell off my helmet as we accelerated away. I only noticed it at the next stop at some traffic lights. I'd had enough. My temper flared for the first time on the trip. Luckily, the gaffer, John, my father, rode back several miles and actually found it, still in perfect working order. Hats off to him, he saved me that day.
Okay, these are the digs at Shannon. This is our last night. Tomorrow we go on. Very, very good. Part of the bikes at the front.
We arrived in Shannon and about to settle in, we realised John's credit card was missing. Another mishap for the trip. Trying to cancel it through the banking app got us nowhere. When you need technology the most, it always seems to fail. Fortunately, we managed to sort it by calling the bank directly. At this point, we just had enough. On our last day, we took the long road home, from Shannon back to Dublin, then across to Holyhead, and finally home to where the journey began. On this second Irish endeavour, we couldn't help feeling a little hard done by the weather. Admittedly, it was naive to expect the same dry conditions we enjoyed throughout our first trip. The south of Ireland is one of the most sparsely populated regions of Europe, and after riding through these storms, I can see why. There was plenty to learn from this adventure, and our company grew ever stronger. Ireland too etched difficult memories. We had phones break, GoPros fall off helmets, and lost credit cards. The weather wasn't kind, and our lack of preparation proved to be devastating. But that's what motorcycling is all about, pushing through adversity and learning from your mistakes. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Would we return to Ireland after our second trip? Of course, it was inevitable. We had to go back to complete the loop and finish the wild Atlantic way.